Hello, dear ones. This is Bevin with Perceptive Souls. I am here to do your collective energy reading today. And I am a coach and mentor for intuitive empaths, light workers, and conscious leaders. And I'm utilizing these readings to really tap into my gifts. For many years, I had turned off or tried to turn off this ability to do these collective readings. And now I'm really stepping into that. Instead of being overwhelmed by all of the collective energy that I can feel, especially right now in our world, I'm allowing it to flow through and out through the tarot and oracle cards so that you can receive the message that you need. Of course, these readings are done on a particular day. And generally what happens is I will go into a meditative state. Or, for example, this morning I woke up and as I laid in bed in that beautiful sort of drifting space between sleep and waking, the message that came through to discuss today was freedom. You know, and that could seem really strange, like a very strange topic to touch upon when almost everyone in the world has been asked by either their city or their state or province or even their country to stay at home, to go within, to distance themselves from others. And that may feel very, very restricted right now. I know that there is a lot of energy going on in conjunction with Saturn at this point, and I certainly am not promoting myself as an astrology expert. I am definitely a student. But Saturn is structure, and Saturn is constriction and boundaries. And, you know, when we get into the space where we're choosing to be, say, self-isolated or to be alone and have our alone time. And as an empath, I need a lot of that. I'm sure you do as well. It seems to be very different when we are required to be alone or to be constricted in our homes. And so I know that I just feel all of these people who are seeking freedom, you know, exploring what that feels like within them. And you might think, well, how could anyone have freedom when we oftentimes don't have a choice? But what I have come to understand is that we always have a choice. And that choice is primarily what's going on within us. So let's dive in to look at the energy of freedom and provide a really positive and optimistic look at what this might be for you. And the very first card that emerged was the beauty way of the Navajo, right? Just take a look at this gorgeous energy, and we come into the number 1. This is the new beginning, right? And we're definitely in that place right now in the world. We are adjusting to a new reality. What it is like to connect with each other virtually, what it's like to be at home, whether you are single and by yourself or you are there with your family and there with your loved ones. It's just a new reality for all of us. And the beauty way invites us into this transformational space. It invites us to get quiet, to spend time every day, finding a way to be reflective, to be self-reflective, to go within. And when we do, we start to feel the winds just blowing through us, this energetic wind, right? This ability to tap in and sense into all of these light codes, all of these beautiful messages that are coming through for those especially who are very perceptive and very tuned in right now. And what this energy invites us into, and the Beauty Way has come up as a card in multiple decks several times recently in my reading. So this is a really important message for the collective and for us as individuals. And that is, how do we look around in the world and choose to see what is beautiful, what is special, what is positive and optimistic and loving and caring. And we even just look at the smallest things, right? As I look over, I see my cat stretched out on her bed and she's just cuddled up. She has this little teddy bear. And I just take a moment to go, look at the beauty of her relaxation, of what she invites me into in my own space. I'm thinking maybe after this I go and take a nap and just cuddle up and get snuggled and kind of go back into the womb. When I put out my hummingbird feeder, or I walk in the forest and I see a small flower start to push up between the cracks in the earth. How do we stop when we've been so busy? So much work, so much productivity. How do we begin to stop and start fresh by noticing all of the small things? Noticing that funny thing that your child says, noticing a funny meme on social media, and just being grateful, just being in that beauty way. That when we start to follow this thread, that everything in life is there to support us, to nurture us, to bring us joy and pleasure and happiness and being satisfied, that we don't need to hustle and strive and fight anymore. We can come into this energy here. So this is a great beginning to your reading, right? And when we start to go within, we then come into this energy here, which I love. It's so incredible. It kind of reminds me of that famous painting where God and Adam are touching fingers, right? Now we can't really do that. And this speaks to me personally about my longing for physical touch, for having those hugs with my soul family and my loved ones, and not being able to do that right now. So there's a little bit of this piece, particularly those who live by themselves or are isolated, of feeling that longing, for that freedom. There's a freedom in being able to touch someone else, to shake hands, to give a kiss on the cheek or on the lips, and just not worry that you're going to catch something from somebody else, right? And so we're longing for this. We're longing for this, and this is, speaks a lot about duality. And we've been in this very Piscean age, the two fishes, right? This dual nature of our humanness and our spiritual side, of our masculine and feminine, the masculine doing and active and outwardly pushing force, and the feminine, which is the inward, receiving, intuitive, nurturing, emotional force. And it could be our light and our shadow. There's so many ways to look at this. And when those two things seem to be in opposition, where they're way out here, right, as opposed to coming together and connecting, this represents a different kind of freedom. It's sort of the yin-yang symbol, right? When we're able to recognize that there's a small amount of darkness in the light, which provides contrast and allows us to really understand what the light is. And there's a small amount of light in the darkness, a little shining glow that illuminates and helps us to understand that there's not just darkness in the world. And this is a really important piece of freedom. It feels constricted, it feels like put together, but this is actually a sacred dance, a sacred marriage between different aspects of ourselves that really are very intertwined and interconnected. And then we move on to this wonderful card, which is the Ten of Air, right? Ten of Swords. And generally in traditional tarot, that looks like a bunch of swords on someone's back. But I love this interpretation. You can see that this is the back of her. So it is the back, right? And it's not necessarily a, man, I've been stabbed in the back and look at all the things that have happened to me, because we could get into that space right now, especially for those who've lost their jobs, or for those who know someone who's sick, or if you've been sick personally. We could get into that story and that mentality that something's happening to us. But she's actually not doing that. She has spread open her beautiful glowing wings. She's looking out into the universe. There's an enormous amount of activation here at her higher self. And she says, I'm kind of no longer in this intertwined, codependent space. I'm independent now. I'm standing on my own 2 feet. I'm ready to join and extend and expand my wings and fly out of the nest and go out into the universe and see what I'm made of. And I believe in myself, right? And this inner journey of moving into being able to see things in the beauty way, right? When we can start a new beginning, we can refresh our mindset, refresh our emotional body. We can recognize that we have these different parts of ourselves, both the parts that are going to be optimistic and the parts that are going to feel a little darker, the part where we're feeling like, okay, I know that things are going to be okay, and the other part that feels like, I don't know how I'm going to pay my bills, or whatever you may be nervous about right now. And when we walk through that path, we come here, where we begin to just stand. It's almost like a power stance. Have you seen those, right? Where people encourage you to stand in a way that helps you to feel powerful. And this is a young woman or a young man going off into the world, ready to make their fortune, ready to see who they are. And this is kind of where we're coming to as a country, as a world, right? We're like, okay, who do we become now? So we've been through all of this. Who do we become now? And then we enter this gorgeous energy, which reminds me so much of the solar plexus, right? But there's lots of ways this could be interpreted. And here is your sun, right? The sun sign in astrology is what you're here to express, what you're here to learn how to do. I'm an Aries, so of course I have red on today, and this is my season. So I just celebrated my birthday, and I'm so excited to be in Aries season. No offense to my Piscean friends out there, but boy, that water energy was dense a few weeks ago. And now we're coming into this where, we're not setting and we're not rising. We are just right on the threshold. We're right on the horizon. And we're starting to exude all of this energy, right? And we're looking out and we're like, that's an interesting maze. And if you actually start to follow this with your eyes, you realize no matter which door you go in, it stops over and over and over. And so you think to yourself, okay, well, I'm here and I'm ready to start expressing who I am in the world, ready to shine my light, right? Whether you're a light worker, an empath, or a conscious leader. And yet there seems like all these obstacles, right? And you can't see, like, well, where does this go? Where is there a centerpiece? Like, oh, maybe I'm actually the centerpiece. Maybe it's me, right? That's the destination, and not some outside thing. Maybe I don't even need to navigate all of these obstacles and all of these different twists and turns and twists and turns. Maybe I've already done that in my life. Maybe it's time for me just to sit and shine, right? Just sit and shine. Love this card. It's amazing. And then we come into this energy here, which is 7 of fire. Yeah, fire. And I love her. She's just sitting like this with her hands between her heart and her throat, right? And it's this activation. And she has this gorgeous moth just stepping right out here, emerging from her third eye. To me, this speaks of a deepening of trust in our inner knowing, right? So we've already expressed, who we are. We've already started to look at what is my identity, and we're coming into that wholeness of that, and leaving behind all this need to sort of wander around in the wilderness, in this maze, and trying to find our way. And we're just like sitting and shining. And then when we do that, we come here. You see that around her wrist is a snake, which is a beautiful symbol. I don't ever see snakes as a bad thing. I grew up with snakes out in the high desert of Oregon. And, as long as you don't bother them, they generally don't bother you. But the snake is a symbol of deep transformation and a shedding of the old skin and a coming in to a new energy. And you can tell just like exactly what's happening. She's no longer the quiet, brand new young maiden who's going out into the world to test her wings. This is a level of maturity. She knows who she is. She speaks from a deep sense of knowing. She allows that flower to blossom, not only for her, but for others, right? She doesn't need to take the spotlight or shine it all upon herself. She's ready to uplift. And, you know, that darkness, that moth that goes around in the nighttime, has now become her deepest knowing. She is pulling that subconscious, that unconscious part of herself forward and out into conscious awareness. And the night doesn't bother her at all because she shines that light from within and glows that out into the space. Right? And she has companions. Of course, my favorite, the cats. Right? Cat energy is very independent, but also interdependent. Right? Interdependent. So I love her. She's amazing. And then we begin to do that. We come back to express this duality, right? And as we're exploring freedom and, you know, what freedom means, let me get this a little closer where you can see. You see what appears to be some kind of couple or family or whatever way you want to interpret this. And they're each looking a different direction, but they have each other's back, right? So your back is not exposed like the Ten of Swords was. There's this gorgeous light that's streaming down. They're receiving everything that they need to know. And to me, this is the interconnected web of empaths and light workers out there. You know, we're standing shoulder to shoulder, back to back. I'm like, I have your back, you have mine. Everyone who is working to make our planet a better place for everyone who's here. You know, we have one hand intertwined with each other energetically, and the other hand reaching out and saying, okay, here's what I can give, here's how I can serve. And we're receiving all of that light and energy. And the nakedness really is nothing to do with sexuality or anything other than really allowing ourselves to be fully seen. Allowing that vulnerability. Being seen to each other and being seen by everyone out there. And this takes some time, right? We have to come into this space where we begin to really trust ourselves, to trust our knowing, to trust our voice, to trust that whoever is supposed to connect with the messages that we have is exactly the person that you will reach. And that you are a part of an interconnected web of other caring, loving, conscious leaders from all over the world who are also working to make our world a better place and to shift consciousness across our planet. So this is a gorgeous, gorgeous card. And then we come into this energy of the rainbow, right? This is our amazing diversity. It's the diversity of human beings, the diversity of thought that's happening right now. This is the promise, if you think about the biblical story of the flood, and that God promised that he would never destroy the humankind with water again. And I believe that that promise, that that story is all about that we are responsible for our own success or our own demise, right? Again, this is that place of recognizing our godhood within and realizing that all of our choices, although we can honor diversity, you see it like all of this sort of city, and to me it kind of looks a little bit like smokestacks and things, but this is a cleaning and a cleansing of that. And that's what's happening right now as we reduce our industry and as we reduce our mining of the earth and as we reduce our travel through the air. We begin to bring in this higher vibration, right? And there are children who have been born on this planet and adults even now with this rainbow energy who just know that we are all one. And there is no difference between us. This is a gorgeous awakening that we're beginning to have right now, because when every single human being faces the same threat to their mortality? We can't help but say, wow, look at all of these artificial divisions that we've put on ourselves. We haven't seen ourselves as this, right? Individual expressions who all are holding hands and connecting and making a difference in our community. We've seen each other as separate, kind of like this energy here. We've seen each other as separate. We've made judgments. And now it's time for us to bring things into unification. And the rainbow energy, this is sort of a beautiful parrot who's just gorgeous colors just streaming in. And if you just take a moment, you can just breathe in that energy. You can feel it. You can feel the shift and change happening, right? This is for our world. And the final card is from the Mystical Shaman Oracle deck. And this is the Luminous Warrior. The Luminous Warrior is integrated, right? They are integrated with light, with shadow, with color, with awareness. So much activation there at their crown and their third eye and their solar plexus and their emotional center. Their energy system just flying out in all directions, vibrating this luminous warrior spirit. And I want to take a moment just to talk about the essence and the medicine of this particular card. The luminous warrior has no enemies in this world or the next. He or she is impeccable in word and deed. They focus on their light rather than what hides in the dark. Since they cast no shadow, they are radiant as the sun and can transform the most terrible enemy into an ally. Their power comes not from the sword, but from speaking their truth. And the question it asks is, are you being tempted by your emotions to follow your lower instincts? Are you being invited to enter into a quarrel with someone? Put your sword away. This is not the time for battle. Your enemy is not who you think it is. Do not act from a place of anger that will damage your relationships and hurt the ones you care for. Find the truth hiding in your heart that will affirm your instinct for peace rather than war. And my friends, I would say that this luminous warrior and all of the incredible energies that we've talked about so far is where freedom lies. When we go within, when we realize we don't need to battle, we don't need to hustle, we don't need to worry about the shadow and the light, we don't need to make divisions in our world, that when we actually start to go within and trust our knowing, when we honor this part of ourselves, empaths, you are a luminous warrior. You have always been a luminous warrior. And our current occurrences are helping you to awaken. They're helping you to understand why you're here, what you're here to do, and how you're here to serve. I thank you so much for joining me to explore what true freedom looks like. It's not about being able to leave your house or do what you want to do. The true freedom comes when you get really clear within who you are, why you're here, and how you're meant to serve. If you'd like to connect with me on a deeper level, you're welcome to look at the description box below. I offer a variety of coaching and mentoring opportunities. I also have a beautiful online community called 1 Million Empaths, where we are supporting and nourishing and uplifting each other's work in the world. And please like and subscribe. It helps this message and other messages to come into a greater awareness across YouTube and across the world and the internet. I thank you so much for joining me, my dear ones, and namaste.